Do you know what real humiliation feels like? When the people you trust the most turn into strangers in one single moment. That day, I felt it. I can still hear the sound of that slap echoing in my head. Everyone in that room froze, eyes wide, mouths open, as my lover, the man I once trusted with my soul, slapped my husband across the face. And I just stood there, breathless, as the world around me collapsed. You see, it didn't start that way. It started with love. Or at least what I thought was love. My name is Anna. I'm 29 years old, married for 4 years to Daniel, a calm, kind-hearted man who never raised his voice at me. He wasn't perfect, but he was loyal. The kind of man who brings you coffee every morning, kisses your forehead before work, and tells you he's proud of you even when you fail. But I wanted more. More excitement. More passion. More attention. That's when Ethan came into my life, my new manager at the company. Charming, confident, with a smile that could melt ice. He noticed me when no one else did. He said things Daniel never said. He looked at me like I was the only woman in the room. And for a woman who felt invisible for months, that look was dangerous. At first, it was innocent. Late-night talks about projects turned into personal conversations. Personal conversations turned into laughter. Laughter turned into secrets. And secrets turned into something else. I told myself it wasn't wrong, that I was just finding myself. But deep down, I knew I was walking straight into a storm. It was a Friday night when it all began to unravel. Daniel had organized a small dinner at home. Our anniversary. He invited my coworkers, including Ethan. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. Come on, Daniel said, smiling. You talk about Ethan all the time. Let's meet him. My heart sank. I felt like I was standing between fire and gasoline. The night began smoothly. Laughter, wine, polite conversation. But under the table, my hands were shaking. I could feel Ethan's eyes on me every few minutes. Daniel noticed. When Daniel went to the kitchen to bring dessert, Ethan leaned closer and whispered, "You look nervous, Anna. Don't worry. I'll behave." I forced a smile, praying this night would just end peacefully. But fate had other plans. Daniel returned with a cake, vanilla cream with the words "Forever Us" written on top. He placed it on the table, smiling with pride. Ethan looked at it, then looked at me. There was something in his eyes, jealousy, maybe anger. Daniel handed me the knife and said, "Make a wish, honey." I closed my eyes, and that's when it happened. Ethan stood up suddenly, his chair scraping the floor. "Enough," he shouted. Everyone went silent. Daniel blinked in confusion. "Ethan? What's wrong?" Ethan's voice trembled. "You don't deserve her." Before anyone could react, slap. The sound cracked through the air like thunder. Ethan's hand had connected with Daniel's cheek. The room froze. Even the candles seemed to stop flickering. Daniel touched his face slowly, shocked. My colleagues gasped. And me? I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I felt my entire life shatter into tiny pieces right there. Daniel's eyes met mine, filled with confusion and pain. He whispered, "Why, Anna? What's going on?" And in that moment, every lie I'd told, every text I'd sent, every secret I'd hidden, came crashing down. Ethan pointed at me and said, "Tell him, Anna. Tell him the truth." My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Everyone stared, and I wished the ground would just open up and swallow me whole. Daniel's face turned pale. He looked at Ethan, then at me again. "What truth?" he asked quietly. My lips trembled. I tried to speak, but no words came out. The silence was heavier than the slap. And then I saw something change in Ethan's eyes, fear. As if he realized he'd just made a mistake. The confidence, the arrogance gone in a second. Daniel stepped back, breathing hard. "Get out," he said to Ethan. His voice was calm, too calm. But it carried a kind of power that made everyone in the room freeze. Ethan tried to speak. "Daniel, listen, Get out." Ethan turned to me. "Anna, say something." But I couldn't, because for the first time in months, I realized who the real villain was. Me. As Ethan walked out, the door slammed behind him, leaving a silence so deep it hurt. Daniel didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just looked at me, a look that said everything words never could. That night, everything changed. Not just for me, but for everyone in that room. Because one slap revealed every secret I'd tried so hard to hide. But what I didn't know then was that the slap wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of something much darker. The night after that slap felt endless. Silence filled the house like smoke, thick, suffocating, impossible to escape. Daniel didn't speak. He didn't even look at me. He just went to the bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. I sat alone in the living room, my hands still trembling. Every second replayed in my mind. Ethan's voice, that sharp sound of his hand, the look on Daniel's face. I wanted to scream, to cry, to explain, but what was there to explain? I was guilty. When morning came, Daniel was gone. No note, no message, just his wedding ring, lying on the kitchen table. My heart cracked open. He had taken his clothes and left the house quietly, like I didn't even deserve a goodbye. At work, whispers followed me. Someone had recorded the scene on their phone. The video of Ethan slapping Daniel had gone viral in our office group. Everyone had seen it, everyone. And worse, they all knew Ethan and I were close. The HR called me in. Their faces were polite, but cold. "Anna," the manager said, "we have to let you go. The situation is damaging for the company." I wanted to argue, but my throat felt dry. So I nodded, signed the paper, and walked out. Just like that, I lost everything. My husband.
My job.
My dignity. That night, I got a message from Ethan. "Meet me," he said. "We can fix this together." I hesitated, but loneliness is a dangerous thing. So I went. He was waiting at a cafe, nervous but smiling. "Don't worry," he said. "People will forget. We'll start over." Start over? My world was collapsing, and he was talking about a fresh start like nothing happened. "Ethan," I whispered, "you humiliated him in front of everyone. You destroyed my life." He frowned. "I did it for you. I love you, Anna." His voice cracked, but his words felt wrong now. Everything about him felt wrong. Then his phone rang. He turned pale and walked away to answer it. I glanced at the screen. It said, "Wife calling." My chest tightened.
Wife.
He'd told me he was single. I listened as he whispered, "I'll be home soon, baby. Don't worry." The world stopped spinning for a second. When he turned back, I was gone for days. I didn't leave my apartment. I shut the curtains, ignored the calls, and let the silence drown me. Guilt, anger, regret, all fighting inside me like a storm. Daniel didn't call. He didn't text. It was like I never existed. Then one morning I got a letter. No return address. Just my name, written in Daniel's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. It said, "You made me believe in forever." I hope he was worth it. That one line cut deeper than any slap could. Tears blurred the paper. I realized how selfish I'd been. But karma wasn't done yet. A week later, I saw something that shattered what little I had left. On social media, a photo. Daniel smiling with another woman, her hand on his shoulder. The caption, "New beginnings." Everyone was congratulating him. And me? I was the villain of every comment. They called me names. Cheater. Homewrecker. Disgrace. I wanted to hide forever. But guilt doesn't let you rest. It crawls into your dreams and whispers your mistakes. I tried calling Ethan, but his number was off. He'd blocked me. He'd moved on. Just like Daniel. One night, there was a knock on my door. It was Daniel's best friend, Mark. He looked angry. "Do you have any idea what you did to him?" he shouted. I tried to explain, but he cut me off. "He cried, Anna. That man never cries. You broke him." Then he threw something on the table, photos. Me and Ethan, leaving the cafe. Someone had taken pictures. Daniel deserved better, Mark said, then left. The walls closed in. I'd lost everything. My love, my respect, my peace. And it was all my fault. It took months before I stepped outside again. I started therapy, trying to rebuild the pieces of my life. I stopped blaming Ethan, stopped chasing Daniel. For the first time, I looked in the mirror and said, I did this, but I can change. Slowly, I found a new job, smaller company, less pay but honest work. My coworkers didn't know my past. I could breathe again. One day, as I left the office, I saw a familiar car parked across the street. Daniel's car. My heart skipped a beat. He stepped out, calmer, colder, but still the man I once loved. Hi, I whispered. He nodded slightly. Hi. Silence hung between us. He finally said, I didn't come for you. I came for closure. We sat on a bench. He told me he'd found peace, that he forgave me, not for me, but for himself. I wanted to cry, but I held it in. He said something I'll never forget. Pain changes people, but it doesn't have to destroy them. Then he left again. But this time, it didn't feel like the end. It felt like a beginning of healing. 3 months later, I got a message from an unknown number. Anna, it's Ethan. I need help. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. He sounded desperate. He said his wife found out everything, filed for divorce, and took everything he had. He was jobless, homeless, broken. For a second, I felt pity. Then I remembered the slap, the lies, the betrayal. This is karma, I said softly and hung up. But the next day, I found him outside my office, looking thin, lost. He fell to his knees. Anna, I'm sorry. I ruined your life. I ruined mine. I wanted to walk away. But I saw the pain in his eyes, the same pain I once saw in Daniel's. I forgive you, I said. Not because he deserved it, but because I was finally free from him. Time moved on. I learned to love myself again. I joined a support group, helped others who'd made mistakes, shared my story, not to gain sympathy, but to remind people that mistakes don't define us. One day, I received a letter. It was from Daniel. It said, I heard about what you're doing. I'm proud of you. I hope you find happiness, even if it's not with me. Tears fell, but this time, they were tears of peace. I smiled and whispered, thank you. Because the truth is, the slap didn't destroy me. It woke me up. It made me see who I was and who I could become. Sometimes, life has to break you apart, so you can finally rebuild yourself the right way. That a year passed since that night, the night that changed everything. I was no longer the same woman who once lived for attention and excitement. I was quieter now, wiser, and strangely stronger. I'd moved to a new city, got a small apartment near the beach, and started working in a local community center. My days were simple, teaching women how to manage finances, apply for jobs, and rebuild their confidence after betrayal. I saw myself in their faces. Their tears were once my tears. And every time I helped one of them smile again, I felt a piece of my own soul heal. But life has a strange way of testing you right when you think you've moved on. One afternoon, as I was organizing a workshop, someone walked into the room. Tall, familiar posture. It was Daniel. My heart stopped. He looked more mature, sharper, but still carried that calm aura that once made me feel safe. Anna, he said softly, I didn't expect to see you here. Neither did I. Turns out, his company was sponsoring the community center. We would be working together again. At first, it was awkward. We kept things professional, polite. But every time our eyes met, I saw something flicker. Not love, not anger, something like understanding. One evening after a long meeting, we walked together to the parking lot. The sunset painted the sky orange. Daniel said, You've changed. I smiled. Life forced me to. He nodded. I used to think forgiveness was weakness, he said, but I see now it takes strength. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt in his presence. Just peace. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something. Sometimes, life brings people back, not to restart the old story, but to end it properly. Things were finally calm until the past knocked again. Literally. One evening, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Ethan was standing there. unshaven, tired, but with the same restless eyes. "Anna, I need your help," he said. I froze. After everything he did, he still had the courage to come to me? He told me his life had fallen apart completely. His wife had divorced him, his company fired him, and he had nowhere to go. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said, "but I can't survive like this." I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. "Ethan," I said, "I forgave you a long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean return." He bowed his head. "I understand." Then he handed me a small envelope. Inside was a letter.
It said,
"I was jealous. Not of your husband, but of how he made you better. I thought destroying him would make you mine. Instead, I destroyed us all." For the first time, Ethan cried. Real tears. And I realized he wasn't a monster. He was just a broken man who'd lost his way, just like I once had. Before leaving, he said, "You're stronger than you think, Anna. Thank you for being human." When the door closed, I felt an unexpected relief. Like an old ghost had finally left my house. Months passed. Daniel and I kept working together on community projects. The awkwardness was gone now. We laughed sometimes, shared coffee, even talked about life. One day, the center held a big charity event. Hundreds of people came. Daniel gave a speech about forgiveness and second chances. His words hit deep, because everyone in that hall knew we were the living example of both. After the event, we sat by the beach. The waves whispered softly as Daniel looked at me. "Do you ever wish we could start again?" he asked quietly. I smiled sadly. Part of me does. But maybe what we had was meant to teach us something, not last forever. He nodded. "Maybe you're right. You taught me what love shouldn't be and what forgiveness should." We sat in silence for a long time, watching the stars. Then he said something that stayed with me. "Sometimes love returns, not to be rekindled, but to be respected." As he walked away that night, I realized I no longer needed his love to feel complete. I'd finally learned to love myself. A year later, my life had transformed completely. The community center grew. We opened branches in other cities. Women from everywhere came to share their stories of pain, betrayal, and rebirth. One evening, after giving a motivational talk, I was approached by a young woman.